Welcome to the DevReady podcast. On today's episode of the DevReady podcast, I have Derek Bunting. Thanks for joining me, Derek.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony.
I'll let you introduce yourself because there's no way I will do it right.
Okay, well, my name's Derek. As you can probably tell, I'm from not Australia. I'm from Scotland. We emigrated over here 7 years ago. The plan was to run the business over in the UK, have a nice lazy day out in the sunshine and the beach over here in Australia, and then we arrived and noticed there was a lot of opportunity to help businesses here. So we've been running the business here and in the UK for the past 7 years now. A bit of background about myself. So when I came out of school, I joined the army for 4 years. Then I went back to uni to get a degree in business. Like most people, I got a degree and I thought I was going to walk into a job at £40,000 a year, which didn't actually happen. So I started a business only because my friend was working with a car detailing company in Edinburgh. I went and started a car detailing company with him. Within 2 months we had 12 staff and we were doing a lot of money coming in, but with 12 staff that money just went straight back out again. And at the time websites and things were just beginning to be used for business purposes. I couldn't afford to pay for a website at that time, so I started developing our own website at the time. And what I would do is I'll go out on the business during the day, come back in, have a shower, have my dinner, and sit till 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes trying to learn PHP programming.
Oh, well.
And then I would get the van ready and go straight back out. And that didn't last very long because when you're not getting much sleep and
it's very difficult.
It's very difficult. So what happened, that kind of evolved. The business continued to grow. I then got to the point where I was earning money online, helping other people. I then sold the car detailing business and proceeded with web design. It was at the time because there was no SEO, there was no marketing online and things like that.
Yep.
And here we are, 21 years later. We are now what I would consider ourselves being a growth agency. So we help our clients, businesses growth from a holistic point of view, integrating marketing, sales, kind of RevOps and technology. To help them grow and scale their business.
Okay, so there's quite a variety there, and I can see how the foundation was laid as you started with the detailing and had a business to grow and then learn how to manage.
Yeah.
Because you just started and then learning how to manage the work versus probably getting new work in versus managing the staff as well. And then
yes.
And then teaching yourself the new skills because you probably couldn't employ people to do that work either. And it was very early on as well. So it was a very specialized thing. So along your whole journey and where you're currently working, before we dive into sort of the other side of what we're all taking to, is what do you enjoy about what you do at the moment, or which is your favorite part of the area that you're working in?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love helping people, generally with anything business related, really, or even self-development. I'm an avid reader and spend a lot of money on courses and things, so I just love helping people. The bare bones of what I do in terms of software and business and marketing and sales and things like RevOps and helping people organise that kind of stuff and seeing their business grow, and it's really fantastic, especially when you're turning over an extra couple of million in 6 months' time. But I think my passion really is the whole software and technology side, and with the advent of AI, for instance, it's really great to come up with an idea to a solution really where there's a problem that already exists, and run with it, and then boom, you've got something that helps reduce a lot of time and effort actually in the execution.
Yeah, you can solve a lot of problems really quickly now through AI. But
absolutely,
I think there's probably still a lot of businesses, and you probably see this as well, a lot of people trying to find a problem to solve with a product that they've made or a solution, and then that could be why they're struggling with what they're doing, is because they're not hitting the mark or not hitting the right customers, not providing the right value in the right places to be able to get to that point where they should be succeeding.
That's correct, 100%.
Do you see that as probably one of the main causes, that they haven't surveyed the market and understood what they're trying to provide, or they don't understand how to position themselves correctly?
Yes, I mean, really, pretty much every business that we work with, whether it's a small organisation to a large organisation, you'll be surprised how many businesses don't have a business strategy. A lot of the businesses go into business because they're good at something, and they're
I'll
good
put
at
my
doing
hands up for that.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all they do, and it's good for us because when we go in, it's like there's fruit dangling from the street, the tree everywhere, and so we can make a big impact really quickly. But I think not having that strategy in place is definitely somewhere where a lot of businesses fail. In actual fact, I was just talking to someone else about this morning, where on LinkedIn, where how many businesses have a social media strategy. Probably not that many, to be brutally honest, eh?
Yeah, I'll put my hands up for that. We've got a loose strategy, but nothing very specific. We know the type of content and who we're trying to talk to, but it's not a full-blown strategy and a plan. We're still just trying to see what's actually going to resonate.
That's correct. But the thing is, you clearly understand who it is that you're trying to resonate with. A lot of businesses actually don't really truly understand who their customer is.
Yep.
And that's what we try and do. Even when it goes down, when we bring a new client in, the first thing we do is we try and go through like a branding exercise where we try and get them to understand why do you even exist, what problem is it that you're trying to solve, what's your vision, tell us about your core values and things like that. Because I think if you can understand that yourself. That can actually drive your brand voice, who it is you're trying to attract, and then obviously the strategy and everything can go from there.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not clear, or it's not easy to articulate that because everyone thinks they can help everyone, that's probably the worst way to approach it. Because if you can help everyone, you're talking to no one. Like you're not going to have a message that's going to resonate enough with a certain group of people who you actually can help and who you probably want to help. Because if you're helping everyone, you're not going to get the customers you actually want to work with either.
Correct. And you'll find that a lot of time, if you're especially if you're a startup business where you're kind of, you're trying to get everything that's just coming in, and then you tend to find that you start wasting a lot of your time on customers which are of low value, that really don't provide any impact to your business, which are of word of a better word, I suppose, it can be a nightmare. So there is value in understanding who it is that you're actually trying to service.
Yeah, and then you've also got the problem with the smaller ones where they may be stretching to meet your costs. So that's a large amount of money in proportion to them versus a larger business. So they're going to demand more of you as well. It's a tricky thing to balance that. That's
right, and I think that's the expectation. And again, we've been in a position where, I'm probably like most other entrepreneurs, right? Where, you want to try and help everybody because you've got this thing that this can definitely help you. And I've been in that position myself where you've tried to help people, but there's only so much you can do to help that person. Where, it's like that old saying, it takes the same amount of time to market to someone who's going to pay $50,000 a month to someone that's prepared to pay $500 a month. And when you actually get into the nitty-gritty of executing and delivering the same service to the same client, the one that's paying $50,000 a month is like, that's fantastic, thanks very much, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one just expects you to be there and wants to know exactly what you're doing, every minute or every second. It's just hard work, yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember who said it to me or where I heard it, but they're like, it's the same amount of effort to invoice for $100,000 it is for $100.
100%.
So their expectations have to be managed. Another thing I've remembered from a long time ago is you're better off working for free than at a discount. At least the free people don't expect the paid service from you. They're grateful for getting something for free. Whereas if you discount it, they're still going to be expecting that high rate. So even if you do have $500 customer, that's that approach showing.
That's right, 100%. And you'll actually find as well, or what I've found with even some of the clients that we have, is because while we have, this is a strategy, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. If one of our clients comes to us, say I'll give you an example actually, one of our clients is looking to recruit someone, but they don't have an HR function, they don't really know how to articulate their job description properly and things, so we can help with that. Now we generally don't charge for that extra help, because we want to help, and if they're successful, we're successful, and that kind of stuff. But what you'll tend to find sometimes is when you give things to people for free, they then start to expect you to do these things for free, which can be a bit of a nightmare as well, you know.
Yeah, especially once it's a part of a paid service, and I'll just help you out because it's not much work. That's sort of mentality.
I was just reading one of the books from Dan Kennedy just yesterday, actually, and one of the chapters it talks about exactly this, where they went into a business, and basically what was happening is they were providing a strategy, and you can provide this service and this service and this service, and what they were trying, what the business owner was doing was just adding that service into the already existing service and not charging for it. And one of the, as they rightly said, it's probably one of the worst things you can do, because you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So if you've got like 10 customers and you're doing that for 10 customers, you're not only chewing up a lot of your time that you should be getting paid for, eh?
Yeah, it's a challenging thing. I think that's probably a challenge more at the early stage of a business, where you're trying to get customers and establish yourself and build that brand and reputation. There's a certain point where you get to start turning away people, and I think that's where you've got a bit more flexibility to then do that. But that could be a bit of bias in just what I've gone through in our business to learn how we get clients and how things have grown. Because unless you can keep going without making revenue for a while, you don't have the choice to turn down customers. No,
that's correct. And I think that's quite an important thing that you point out there, is being able to turn customers away. Because as an entrepreneur, it's really hard to say no in a lot of cases. And that's when you go back to the whole thing about understanding your customer, being able to say no to people that don't actually align with your ICP or your buyer persona or your ideal customer profile, is something that can really help your business actually grow, Yeah,
because then you're not spending time on the wrong customers. They're the ones that are probably going to chew up the 80-20. Most of your headaches will come from the ones that aren't your ideal customers, because you're not serving them 100%. You're doing somewhat, and then they're going to want customizations and changes and little modifications, and I'll just throw something in because it helps them be quiet for the next couple of weeks or whatever the situation may be.
That's exactly right. I've been there.
I think we all have. It's a fun journey, but it's also it's a struggle sometimes to try and juggle the right balls and keep the right things moving. And that's probably where you mentioned earlier. It's unless you're clear on what direction you've got and have some strategy in place, then you'll never get to that right spot.
That's right.
So how do you see sort of the technology space with businesses? So you do RevOps, which I'll let you explain. I think that's revenue ops. That's like helping operations to grow and scale and bring in more revenue.
Yeah, so basically what revenue operations is a culmination of technology, getting the technology right for that particular business. It's about knocking down the siloed marketing, sales and customer success departments and bringing them in as a revenue operations department, which has those different elements within one. But what they're doing is they're actually all working towards the same goals and objectives to the business, which essentially is driving revenue. So what you'll find with organisations where they've got siloed business functions is they've all got their own objectives, they've all got their own things that they want to achieve, and they're not always aligned, in which case then the person that generally suffers is the business because of lack of revenue, and also the customer experience. So if you can improve the overall customer experience, you can improve the overall revenue being able to be driven by the business itself.
And that makes sense when you hear it. A lot of people I see tend to think that the sales and marketing are two completely different functions, where really the marketing feeds the sales. That's where the leads come from, the inquiries, the interest in the actual product. So it doesn't make sense that they run independently.
No, absolutely not. I mean, the thing is, when there's usually when there's siloed departments, sales will generally blame marketing for sending through non-qualified leads and this kind of stuff. So I think it's really important to make sure that everyone's on the same hymn sheet. This is the objectives. This is where we're heading for, and it's not just about everyone heading for the same objectives. It's about being able to deliver the same message and same experience, I suppose, to the customer. So if marketing's saying one thing, for instance, then you get to sales, and their objective is to try and generate as many sales as they possibly can, and they tell a slightly different story to the customer from what marketing did, that can cause a lot of rift and problems. And I suppose in a lot of cases, customers will then vote with their feet, and then that customer can be lost.
Yes, it's really crucial to get them working together and humming nicely, so then you can actually have a unified experience across pre-sale to the actual sale, and then I'm guessing upon delivery and long-term maintenance or care or whatever you do after you deliver your actual service or product. So when you say technology in this space, I know you said you've self-taught engineer, you've got PHP. Are you talking about custom apps, or are you talking about getting technology in place such as CRMs to help the process or automation tools?
Yeah, so I think, probably both there. I mean, what we like to try and do is try and build a lot of our own products, because like when I first started developing software, for instance, way back in the day, we're developing a lot of open source applications, a lot of e-commerce like Zencart, and then it was Mambo, which merged into rebranded to Joomla, and then you've got WordPress and all this kind of stuff. But I think there's a lot of value in custom applications, especially in websites and things, and you'll probably know this yourself, so that what you can do, like for instance, if you're developing a website application for a customer in Joomla or WordPress or any other open source application, there's a lot of barriers, I suppose, and there's a lot of nuances with that particular piece of software which might not be the best kind of software to use for that particular purpose. Yep. So what we done 5 years ago is we started developing our own CMS using the Laravel framework and Livewire and Tailwind and all this kind of stuff. And really the whole point of that was to actually reduce our time to market for the customer, and also reduce a lot of the coding required and things to just get a system up and running, which is already SEO optimized, so you don't actually need to get 100 plugins just to get SEO working and all this kind of stuff. Yep. So there's a lot of companies now starting to embrace the custom solutions for their particular business, because one size does not fit all. And that's just the way it is. Yep. And I think with the advent of AI, you've got HubSpot, which has been around for a long time, and a lot of these other integrations. I mean, when we go into a business, and it's a larger organisation, they've got such so many different systems that they're not using, or even some systems that they do the same thing, that they're paying money for. So we can go into a business and we can generally save them like $2,000 or $3,000 a month just on their applications that they're not using. In a lot of cases.
Subscription bloat. Someone signs up to something.
Yeah.
Someone may sign up to the same thing and didn't know the other person did it, and you're paying for two different accounts.
That's right.
Yeah, competing products. I'm sure there's probably people who have got Salesforce and HubSpot and Pipedrive and ActiveCampaign, like everything all together. Just it's hard to keep track of it, and especially like you said, if it's not a unified team doing those things, then that's going to be where you fall through the cracks again. And then $2,000 to $3,000 a month, it can be significant. That's a bit of money a year. Like, there's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, I mean, when we first arrived 7 years ago in Sunny Mackay up here in North Queensland, I was actually consulting with a non-profit here, and they were using a system called NetSuite, which is an ERP system. And now generally what happens with like larger organisations, Salesforce do it, HubSpot do it, Oracle do it with NetSuite and things, is they offer non-profit discounts. So even just by consulting with them in that first month, we saved them $72,000 a year, just by negotiating the non-profit discount, which should have, in my personal opinion, been negotiated at the beginning anyway. But unless you know these things, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Of course.
So it does really help the organisation.
Yeah, and that phrase, you don't know what you don't know, gets people into a lot of trouble.
It certainly does, mate.
When they think they know. I'll add that in. It's they think they know something, but they really don't know what they don't know. Like you're getting into an industry you don't know anything about, or a tech field, or whatever it may be, and it's like that. So unless they actually have done enough research and understood that these tools do offer non-for-profit discounts or even free tiers on a lot of them,
right,
because you're a not-for-profit, then they wouldn't even know to ask. And the salespeople aren't going to ask that question because it's not hitting their quotas.
That's correct.
They're not hitting their targets. It's not in their interest to give you a not-for-profit discount.
That's correct. And you'll find as well that, when you're doing these kind of things, you'll find that sometimes if they're working in a kind of siloed environment, the technology that marketing's using is the same technology which sales could be using, but they've chosen something completely different, which does the same kind of thing. And again, it's having that alignment with technology, which is probably the first thing you do in a RevOps situation, is to try and streamline things and make it much more efficient.
Yeah. And what you're probably finding in that scenario is then there's a third tool that's come in to sync between the two tools.
Yes.
to keep the two systems in sync.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. And that probably comes down to sort of the point you touched on then, which is the not one-size-fits-all approach, which is if you use an off-the-shelf tool, you will need to adjust your processes to fit the way that software operates.
That's right.
Our bread and butter is building custom software for people.
Yes.
Whether it's a Shopify thing with a custom integration to an external ERP that doesn't have anything, and we're building that custom thing with their logic and the way they operate their business on top of the ERP into it, or it's a custom app and an API that operates, and that's why you're doing your startup, because you've got something different.
That's correct.
There is always going to be a limitation in how you achieve the outcome if you're using off-the-shelf software. And then really the distinction then comes down to is what you want to achieve the novel part of your business? If it is, then you probably have to go custom because you won't be able to achieve it the other way. If it's not, then the off-the-shelf is definitely for you. And we're an advocate of both models. Like, why build if you can use it?
Yes.
Why build if you can buy? I think is the phrase. Just butchered that completely.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that to a point. Again, it really depends on the overall goal of the founder. So I'll give you an example. I mean, we're working with a client at the moment as a cleaning company, and basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to help them scale. And the way we're going to do that is try and implement technology so that, for training, for product ordering and things like that, and to take the business to where it is, which is a local company, to something that's more national and franchised out, where franchisees can be managed within this software and marketing can be done and all this kind of stuff. Using all these different systems, like HubSpot, which then needs to hook into this, and you're never ever going to get that perfect streamlined unification, I suppose, unless it's completely custom built by your kind of own team. And again, when you look at things from a long-term perspective, what's the outcome? Well, I want to exit in 5 years. Okay, if you want to exit in 5 years, it's going to be more valuable if you've actually developed your IP around your software and your technology than what it is having a WordPress website or Joomla or whatever it is, which is then cobbled together, as you might say, using APIs from these other systems. Because while that system is nice, kind of nice to have, and it'll get you up and running fairly quickly, you're going to always have more. You'll always get more back when you come to actually sell the business.
Yeah, and we've just done a very similar thing. We've got a client who's working in the cleaning industry, is a franchise, and they were using existing software that is no longer maintained by the original provider.
Yep.
About 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And then we've built a new operating system for them to be able to scale the business through more franchisees and manage all the teams. And that has let them scale. I think they've tripled the franchisees over the past year. Amazing. And they're looking to get that another 3 or 4 times in size over the next 12 months. It's been able to get them to that point. But that existing software they were using for, I think it was about 10 years, but there was a lot of band-aids and paperwork, like workarounds, just because that's how it was, and they had to just make it work. Yeah. So everything that was a problem has been solved now in the custom solution that lets them operate and scale 30 teams at one branch to be able to go out and clean and do what they need to do. But it's having that customization to build the workflow that is how you operate your business if your business is built on process.
That's correct. Systems and processes. That's exactly what we say to them as well. Because I think when you're coming to, I think there's a lot of big cleaning organisations or facility management businesses, but when you're talking about a kind of mom and pop type operation where they're hitting maybe 500k, maybe a mil, and they want to start moving into this other direction, it's really important to try and do exactly what you were just talking about there. I think what can sometimes be a problem, especially in software, is trying to get them to understand, to see the vision of where you're kind of going and try and match that with the cost associated with actually developing the solution to get it to a point where you can actually do that. And once you actually get to that point and they can see the benefits, it's one of these things, I suppose, in hindsight, if I knew that this was what I was going to do, then I would have probably done it earlier. But I mean, trying to manage those cost expectations as well can be a bit difficult.
It's one of the more difficult things you can do, because if it's a small business, it's their money. Where when you're working with a larger corporate, it's not their money really.
Correct, yeah.
That's the difference. It's not coming out of their pocket; it's coming out of the corporate account. It's a little bit
right.
different. But it's that opportunity cost of, if you keep doing what you're doing, versus if you change and do this investment, will you save a year's wage on someone, or can you shift that person, rather than save him, can you shift them to something more high value to help you generate more income, more revenue, or perform more work now? You can do more work in the same amount of time.
That's right. 100%.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to look it up, but it's hard to quantify that sometimes, because they haven't sat down to define the process and understand what the exact flow is of data through the business or the process or whatever it may be.
That's 100%. I'll give you another great example of that. We were working with a company here in Mackay where it took them 6 years to get to 1.7 million. It's a solar company, and basically when we went in to speak to them to begin with, there was really pretty much no branding. The website was generating about 60 visits a month. Nothing was hooked up. Analytics wasn't working. They were spending, I think it was in excess of about $2,500 to $3,000 a month on SEO backlinks, which were not related to the industry. They were spending money on Podium, was one of them. So they were spending about $800 a month for
It's
something.
not a cheap tool.
For something they weren't even using, right? It was
even more reason not to use it if they're not going to use it at all.
It's crazy. So right off the bat, we were saving them about $2,500 a month. Then it's trying to get them to see, that, especially like when you're talking about SEO and things, I don't care what anybody says, SEO, when you first start doing it, takes a bit of time. Usually we say it takes about 4 to 6 months for it to really start taking off.
Yep.
So basically what happened there is we implemented a growth strategy, try to make sure that they understand what we're doing, etc., etc. And basically what we've done is in 15 months we added an additional 2 million on the top line in that small period of time. Now this is Mackay. Mackay's got like a TAM here of about 130,000 people live here. That's about it.
Yep.
And there's other opportunities and things like buying leads and things, but it's trying to let people see that it's taking you 6 years to where you are. The opportunity cost is you could be spending 10, 12 grand a month, which includes their ad spend and things, which obviously doesn't come to us. But what you could be doing is you could be generating 10 times what you're actually spending, or more, as the case was. And it's trying to get them to see that opportunity cost, and this is what you've done in the last six years, which is very little. This is what we're going to do in this period of time. So it really did help them springboard and grow their business quite exponentially. But again, it's been able to show them that there's a process to everything, and it's not just going to happen overnight. It doesn't matter what anybody says.
You've got to trust the process.
Trust the process. That's exactly right.
So for anyone else that's in a similar situation like that, before we wrap up, what sort of some key advice things that you can tell them to look at to either make some immediate cuts or think about how to try an area to improve to get to that sort of a result?
Yeah, I think probably the first thing would be to look internally, have a look at the core business, why the business exists. Actually, really cut back and review who it is that you're trying to service, and be quite ruthless, and really get strong and define who that ICP is, or buyer persona, if you like. Because I think if you really understand who it is that you're trying to target and you're trying to service, everything else should fall into place in terms of your messaging, where you need to be, advertising, and you'll have a better understanding as well of what you need to spend on a kind of monthly or annual basis in terms in order to contact that particular person.
Yep. And then, some of those costs can be substantial. Like you've mentioned, several $1,000s a month can be cut out just by doing that audit as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's even like in websites. I mean, generally, I think what happens with most websites is people pay, say anything from 6 to 20 grand for a website if it's a smaller business, and then they think that that's it. That's it kind of done. That's not how it should work. Your business is like your number one salesperson, right? So it needs to be evolving just like we do every single minute of the day.
Yep.
You need to be testing your messages. You need to be doing conversion rate optimization. You need to be making sure that, if you're generating 5,000 visits, 50,000 visits a month to your website, if you're not getting any leads from that, then there's a problem. So you need to really be looking at and understand your numbers is probably something as well,
Yeah, if what do they say? If you can't measure it, you can't track it.
That's
so
correct,
unless you know what's happening, you're not going to be able to make the right decisions, and you'll just be spinning in circles almost.
Yeah, 100%.
If anyone wants to reach out and learn a bit more about what you do at, I think it's Adonis Media.
Yes.
Is that the company? Yep, I got that right. How can they do that?
Yeah, they can reach out on our website, which is just simply adonis.media, or they can certainly catch up with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there posting things and that. We are throughout different socials and things, but most of my efforts are really on LinkedIn, to be fair.
We'll add all that to the show notes as well. Derek, it's been a pleasure to chat to you today. I think we had a really good discussion. There's some key nuggets there I think people can take away. Once again, thank you for joining me on an episode of the DevReady podcast.
Fantastic, Anthony. Thank you.
Thank you.